and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So, censorship here in America. It's nothing new. We've seen it before. We've seen it happen over and over again. And yesterday was an important day. Many people were talking about Press Freedom Day, World Press Freedom Day. How interesting it is, though, when we have the United States talking about World Press Freedom Day when an individual is currently behind bars in the Belmarsh prison. Now, Belmarsh prison is a maximum security prison in Great Britain. Unfortunately, the individual that's locked up in there has no business being there at all. His name is Julian Assange. And yet, when push comes to shove, we see our establishment say that they care about independent media, a free press, journalistic integrity. But when questioned about it, called out about it, we see their utter hypocrisy. I want to pull up this video here of the White House press secretary being asked about the double standards about where they stand on World Press Freedom Day. Julian Assange should not spend one more second behind bars. Listen to how the White House press secretary addresses their hypocrisy.
One more press freedom question. Advocates on Twitter today have been talking a great deal about how the United States is engaged in hypocrisy by talking about how Evan Gershkovich is held in Russia on espionage charges. The United States has Espionage Act charges pending against Julian Assange. Can you respond to that criticism?
So, what is the criticism?
Well, the criticism is that the argument is that Julian Assange is a journalist who engaged in the publication of government documents. The United States is accusing him of crime under the Espionage Act, and that therefore the United States is losing the moral high ground when it comes to the question of whether a reporter engages in espionage as a function of his work. So can you respond to that?
Look.
So here's the thing. First of all, I'm impressed that he was able to ask that question and not be shut down immediately.
I'm not going to speak to Julian Assange in that case from here. What I will say is, and you heard directly from the president, when today in his statement on this anniversary, but also during the dinner where he talked about the freedom of the press and how important it is to protect journalists because it is part of our democracy, right? It is important to have that if we want to have a democracy.
But how can we have a democracy when, in fact, we're seeing more and more journalists and whistleblowers being detained and arrested? We're seeing more journalists being silenced. We're seeing people who are trying to call out corruption being arrested and being charged for crimes. And the individuals that committed the crimes are living their best lives, buying off more politicians, and, of course, getting away with more corruption. You know, again, what I find interesting is that this has been an ongoing problem under both Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. It's like we've said before numerous times. Our government is bought and sold by the top 1%. The criminals are running the show. The corrupt are running everything. We want to know why our lives are so miserable? It's because the top 1% are dictating everything to us. People should be storming the streets. People should be furious. And even here on social media, we're seeing a massive wave of censorship, suppression. You have to be careful what you say and cannot say. Are you not angry? Are you not upset? Because you should be.
Right. It is part of how we move forward. Telling the facts, being able to tell the truth, and be able to reporters to do that freely. And so the president's going to continue to speak to that. The president's going to continue to work to make sure that these Americans who are, again, held hostage, who are wrongfully detained, come home.
But why is the president and this administration so dead set on getting Julian Assange extradited to the United States? Even under Trump's waning days of president of these United States, the judge ruling over Assange made the decision that it would be unsafe for Julian Assange to be brought here to the United States because, well, the United States doesn't have a real clean track record in regards to safety of its prisoners, and the judge was worried that either Assange would hurt himself or somebody would hurt Assange. But here comes in Biden, and Biden said, Oh, we care about free press. We care about journalistic integrity. We got to stop Trump, and all the vote blue, no matter whose sycophants voted for him. And now, all of a sudden, we're seeing Assange being threatened with extradition here to the United States under a Democratic administration, of all things.
And that is something that we have seen under this administration. He's been able to do more than a dozen times. And so you see this president's commitment in just his last 2 years. We put forward additional tools to do that, to deal with this matter. And so that's what I can speak to. That's what I can speak to the president's commitment on this. I'm not going to weigh in on comments about Julian Assange.
Because it's a difficult conversation to talk about. I want to give a huge shout out to Code Pink, because they actually had the courage to call out all these jagoffs here at the Washington Post.
In particular, I'm curious whether you've been able to talk.
Excuse us, we can't use this day without calling for the freedom of Julian Assange.
Up, you gotta go. You gotta go. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Freedom of speech, world press. Again, I keep bringing this up, but when I see these jagoff journalists, these people of the establishment media in these crowds, all the while being blind to the fact what's happening to an outstanding journalist named Julian Assange, who's behind bars, and they're all silent. Again, I just look at these crowds of people and I think, God, they're lemmings. They're okay with censorship and corruption. You know, it only takes a brave handful of individuals to really call out corruption. You know, you got people like Jose Vega and Cayenne who call out the Democratic lawmakers and Republican lawmakers for their hypocrisy. You got brave individuals like Code Pink actually going up there and saying, hey, look, we don't how can we talk about World Press Freedom Day when there's a journalist rotting behind bars? Again, I got to bring this analogy up, but all these vote blue, no matter who people who say, oh, I care about free speech and the media. We can't have Trump again in office. We got to resist Trump. Those are the same kind of people who say, oh, if I was alive in the Civil War era, I would have helped the slaves. If I was alive during World War II, I would have helped the Jews. Not I wouldn't have. Same thing with all these quote unquote journalists here. They're not going to be stepping out of line, calling out corruption or war crimes. They can't do that because their owners won't let them. Resistance fighters, my rear end.
The Biden the extradition request.
What about 2 hours and not one word?
Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy, guys.
He's saying, take it easy, guys. No, he's not.
Not one word about journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was murdered by the Israeli occupation forces in Palestine. One word about
We're here to celebrate freedom of expression, and we just.
Oh, really? See? Oh, my God, these people like to smell their own asses. Hold on.
Freedom of expression, and we just experienced it. Let me continue, Mr. Secretary, to ask you about Evan Gershkovich and your efforts to get him free. Well, first, in particular, I'm curious.
Jeez Louise. Madness and insanity all around. I want to pull up this video here of Matt Taibbi and Aaron Mate addressing the fact that there's a dark road of censorship that we're all heading down towards, folks. It's going to get insane. Brace yourself, folks. Shout out to Turncoat Don for capturing this wonderful gem. These words here are going to be relevant today and further on down the road.
So many people, honestly, some people believed it, but then I think other people, when confronted with it, were just like, who cares? The priority is defeating Trump. Or they'd say, who cares but Trump? Like, you want to talk about corruption, but Trump. That was something that we saw a lot of.
But look what happened. Because many people adopted that attitude, that gave these same intelligence officials and their allies a free pass to deploy that same playbook against Bernie Sanders in 2020.
Yeah, and I also think, once you start going down the road of saying it's okay to do this, or it's okay for us to turn the other way over something, a colossal media lie and an act of censorship because Trump is bad, then where does it end? Not only are you morally going to be stuck going down that road forever, but also the administration owns you from that point forward. Once you've been complicit in something like that, what are you going to do? Push back on them?
Keywords right there. Okay, so here's the problem with our media. Well, here's a problem. There are numerous problems. I mean, come on, I could be here for hours on end talking about the problems with our media. Mainstream media, corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News itself, they're all owned by corporations and people who are involved in finance, big business, etc. These are the same people who control our politicians. I need to make this very clear here. What you see in mainstream media, what's being written, what's being presented to you on television is signed, sealed, and approved by the powers that be. Never once will the media actually challenge these politicians who are doing insider trading. Never once will the media ever call out the fact that we are, again, going after whistleblowers and journalists that are exposing corruption. Never once will the mainstream media address the fact that we have politicians who've been in power for decades on end who have been enriching themselves as people are starving in the streets. We have a mental health crisis in this country. We have an opioid crisis in this country. We have an infrastructure problem in this country. Hell, another bank is going to be collapsing pretty soon, folks. But the thing is, the media can't call out the powers that be because they are complicit. They are following orders. That's what the mainstream media is doing. And I hate saying this, but it's done a phenomenal job in brainwashing a lot of our fellow countrymen. Because people have been trained, unfortunately, to believe that this is okay. How things are going on in this country are A-okay. But it's not okay. I don't know what it's going to take for people to finally wake up. Maybe one day when Americans can't get their Starbucks or their Dunkin' Donuts anymore. I don't know what it will take. But it's pretty damn embarrassing. Rent's going up. Owning a home is hell, it's not even a myth anymore. It's becoming a legend. Home ownership in America. Good luck. Opening up a small business. Hell, even going to higher education. And look, I know a lot of people have different opinions about college right now. My advice, don't go to college here in the United States. Go overseas. Go to a trade school. Do something, okay? Because right now, things are getting bad. And we already know how bad the censorship is on social media. And yet our media, the speakers of the truth, will never tell you that. They won't tell you about the election fraud that took place in 2016 and 2020. They'll give Trump's empty podium all the airtime in the world. But do you really think they're going to tell you how things really are in this country? I mean, let's face it, just to let you know how bad things are. Remember that guy, first name Jeffrey, last name Epstein? Yeah, him, that guy. ABC News already had a story on him. There's a video. Yeah. ABC News had a story on him. Unfortunately, ABC News got a phone call. Because if they did a story, a certain member of the royal family would have been exposed as one of Jeffrey's good friends. And then, oh no, they wouldn't be able to talk to Will and Kate. Because the media needs to have access to the top 1%. To the royals. Do you really think the media has your best interests? Do you really think the DNC or RNC have your best interests? It's one big club, and you ain't in it.
Afterward, there's not going to be a real, real press coverage of that administration going forward. So I don't know. I keep thinking about this story. And you've seen All the President's Men, I'm sure, right? Both of you. That's amazing scene where Bob Woodward is in the courtroom for the arraignment of the Watergate burglars, and they get to the judge asking James McCord, what he does for a living, and he kind of whispers, Central Intelligence Agency, and Bob Woodward goes, holy shit, right? Like his eyes light up. Bob Woodward was a Republican. He would have voted for Nixon that year, but the reporter in him, in that scene at least, and who knows what happened in real life, was so jazzed by the scale of that story that it overwhelmed all the political considerations. Like those things didn't matter at that point. That's what's puzzling to me about stuff like this. Like where's the normal kind of reportorial excitement about this big thing? Because isn't it? I mean, it feels to me like a pretty big story. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
Oh, you're not missing anything, buddy. And again, hey, we covered on this show, as have everyone else in independent media, from Jimmy Dore to RBN to Heartland's Media. All of us, we've all talked about the same thing in regards to what's happening to Matt Taibbi. When you have a delegate calling for him to face prosecution and jail time, that's happening. That happened here. Thanks to Medea Hassan of BSDNC. World Press Freedom Day here in America. What? What the hell is that? I wish I could say that things are going to get better. And that's why I'm going to say this again, because I believe in being consistent. We need to start building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C. We need to start building citizen ballot initiatives, supporting citizen ballot initiatives, making every single goddamn state in this country a citizen ballot initiative state, supporting independents, supporting third parties. And I'm going to ask this one task, and this one's the big one, because I'm so glad that there are outlets like the Jimmy Dore Show, RBN. Yeah, hey, shout out to Hardlands Media. Gonna be a little bit of an egomaniac here. Shout out to Convo Couch. But you know what? The thing is, we need more citizen journalists. But the thing is about being a citizen journalist is that sometimes doing this job is tough. Sometimes giving commentary on stories like this and others, it's tough. It is brutal. It is unforgiving. But if we all don't start speaking out, we're all going to be silenced. Yesterday was World Press Freedom Day. Let's have democracy in the chat. Do we really have a free press? Type 1 for, yeah, kid, it's all good. Everything's fine. It can't get any worse. Type 2 for, the fight keeps on going on for a free press, because it's getting worse.